Hi, Chantel. I hope you're doing well. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Warner. I hope you're doing well. Hi, Carla. Hi, Magni. 1308. Hi, Donnie Hughes. Hope you're all doing really well. Bit of an impromptu live. Just a couple of things that I've found over the last sort of 24 hours, 48 hours. I think it's potentially important. So, and it keeps me busy as well, coming on here and speaking to you guys, because obviously I'm by myself a lot, so it's also good for me every now and then. I'm going to try not to look at the screen too much. I'm not ignoring you, it's just obviously because of the information I've got that potentially they may try and blind people through the screens. Now, I don't want to scare anyone in this, and funny enough, I've just been having a messaging with somebody. It's very possible just the exposure changes the outcome in all of this. Okay, and actually the message that I've just been messaging somebody about, they've said, Gary, it's really weird, every time you're releasing information there's things coming out on TikTok about what you've been talking about, and this was specifically about the Rockefellers and a meeting they were involved in 1991, which is a very key year in all of this. Hi Vanessa, I hope you're doing okay. Hi Lisa. Hi Patricia, I hope you're all doing really well. So yeah, and you will find that will happen as the disclosures get bigger. Then they're forced into a position where more truths will come out about things, and that's just something that will naturally happen. And as I've said, it's very possible that just by the disclosure, it changes the outcome, changes the future as to what the plans may have been. There's very likely an element of, oh my goodness, someone's exposed what we were planning, we now can't do it. Because it then becomes too obvious. But there's a very good analogy that a lot of people mention, and I think it's worth mentioning it every now and then, is which I said about in the last couple of nights, is the frog in boiling water. And I just want to run by that again because it is very relevant to everything that's going on. They're in a position, you see, where if they do anything too quickly, it'll become too obvious to everybody, and it probably won't happen. So the frog in the boiling water analogy is, if you had a frog in cool water first of all, and you heat that water up slowly, the frog will become accustomed to the heat increasing, won't even notice it, and will end up just sitting there until it's too late. And it's the same sort of situation we're in here. So they've got to move with their agenda in a way that it doesn't create too much of a panic. If you were to suddenly make that hot water really hot, suddenly that frog's going to jump out of the water. And it's that same sort of situation I suspect that we're in now. But it is, funny enough, some more conversations I've been having, we've got to consider, or messages, got to consider, with my relevance in this, is a lot of it staged for me to identify this and expose it for whatever reason. Now, by doing that, if they're doing this deliberately in any way, then they're exposing themselves through my evidence. So there's I don't think that's the case, but it's possible that there are people within the system that are assisting me with certain information to lead to the exposure. That's possible. And when you look at the potential Knights Templar connection and the apparent information of a deception about the bloodline of Christ and all of this, then that could be relevant to all of this. Anyway, just a little bit of a recap. If you don't know me, hi, Jill, sorry. I hope you're doing okay. I'm terrible. I'm definitely getting older. Bit of a recap for those of you who don't know me. There's only 40 people on here, so it's not many. But I was in the police for 18 years. I was in Kent Police from the year 2000 until 2006. I then transferred down to Dorset, where I didn't know anybody in 2006. And that the year after that, I was introduced to my wife, which I think was a staged introduction, introduced to the property, Exbourne Manor, and ended up buying a property there with a mortgage in Exbourne Manor at Bournemouth, which is, where I acquired all of this evidence from many years later. And in 2018, I voluntarily resigned from the police, not knowing that it was connected to what I was going to be exposing later, and this international government fraud. And in 2000, going back a bit, in 2009, I became a director for this company, Exbourne Manor Freehold Limited, which oversees the property where I bought a flat, you see, in 2007. And so they created this company in 2007. I joined it as a director 2 years later in 2009. Many interesting things happen around 2009. One of those things we're going to be talking about, which now seems to be symbolic and relevant to this, and you're going to see in the evidence again how this significantly links back to me, all right, or back to where I was working, put it that way, and the relevance in all of that. Anyway, I was a director for this company from 2009. We had a roofing project being done on the building, which was over £300,000. So we were all being told to pay about, I think it was just over £4,000 extra that I had to pay into the building to pay for the roof. And suddenly, the managing agent, after I've moved into the property a little while later, and I'm trying to talk about the leaks into the flat, they suddenly disappear and I can't make contact with the managing agents. This makes me very suspicious, bearing in mind there's lots of money flying around in the company now, okay, because of this £300,000 roofing project. I also found later that there was £37,500 that appeared to have been an illegitimate payment. I haven't mentioned this previously actually, but that's part of my evidence in the initial inquiries, that I found out later had been moved from the accounts, so that raised some suspicions as well. Anyway, because the managing agent went missing, or I couldn't contact them for a while, and I hadn't seen the bank documents ever for the company, and there was a lot of money obviously going around with the roof project, I approached Anthony Roberts of Exbourne Manor, who was the acting chairman, on the 8th of July 2022. And asked to see the bank documents. Now, I'd already asked previously, but I was becoming quite insistent now. So I was quite insistent, you know, saying, look, I'm a director. The managing agents disappeared. Can't contact them. I've never seen the accounts. Well, Anthony Roberts became angry at me. So angry, in fact, that I had to end the conversation. And I knew something wasn't right. And that was on the 8th of July. I arranged a meeting in Diana Betts' flat, who is a director of Delta 4. Her flat is Delta 4, top floor, massively implicated in the criminal network via her actions and trying to remove me, etc. And she's a phlebotomist for the NHS. So that ties in with the blood element in this. Anyway, I arranged a meeting with Anthony Roberts from flat A11, ground floor flat on the right-hand side. If he's still there. He was there last time I was there. And arranged a meeting in Diana's flat and just said, you know, Anthony, I don't know, or Tony, I'll call him, I don't know what I've done to upset you. I'm really sorry, whatever I've done. He didn't apologise, which I thought was interesting. And I basically said to them both, look, if you don't agree that I see the bank documents, whilst I'm a director here, then I'm going to have to go to all of the other directors. So that was on the 10th of July, 2022. 3 days later, I received an email where Anthony Roberts was resigning, okay, as a director. So I knew from that point something was going to be wrong with the accounts. Of course, I really had no idea how unbelievably huge it was going to get and turn into the most important evidence in human history, having the ability to change the world forever. It was just beyond anything I ever imagined. Anyway, this triggered my initial inquiries. I effectively became the acting chairman at that point, rallying all of the other directors together and the shareholders and trying to find out what had been going on. And it gradually became clear that many of them were implicated in the bigger issue in all of this. And my inquiries were quite protracted. There was a lot of emails. I was trying to save all of the emails. There was votes going on. There was meetings being held to remove some of the directors that I called. They tried removing me. That was Diana Betts, Delta 4, top floor flat of Exbourne Manor, 37 Christchurch Road in Bournemouth in Dorset, BH1 3 November, X-ray. So anyway, this went on for a few months. I then acquired 2 sets of bank accounts after I requested through the managing agent certain documents and information. One of them appeared to be genuine, authentic bank documents, and I put all of the figures into a spreadsheet and established that over a 7-year period, over £167,000 had been not paid in by others. Okay, so this meant I'd paid in every single time I've been asked, course, this meant I've paid more than I should have been, which means I've been defrauded, okay, by a lot of money. That's just over a 7-year period. The other set of accounts I established, it's guaranteed that they're forged documents, okay? They were for internal use only, okay, and they had a Lloyds Bank logo on them. But I acquired them from the managing agent, Owens and Porter, who I later found was linked to the Russian government. So obviously, if they're internal use only documents with trying to be made look like a Lloyds Bank document, why has the management company got them? That's not a Lloyds Bank. Okay, so I took these into a Lloyds Bank. They looked at them and said, well, no, that doesn't appear as though they're documents we produced like a normal document. Anyway, when you look at the documents a little bit more closely, you can see that they're misaligned. They're not conforming with a normal printed statement by the bank. You had columns, and some of the dates were almost in the amounts columns and the amounts in the date columns. So they were clearly created not by a bank's normal printing system. Anyway, this obviously triggered inquiries with Lloyds Bank, where I made a complaint. Obviously, I'm starting to report this to the relevant authorities, and eventually I get information supporting pretty overwhelmingly that those documents had been produced by somebody on the Treasury Department of Lloyds Bank, because I established through connections with the bank and a communication with them, they tried using another set of documents in a table, but they'd missed a section out on the border of that table. So I knew it wasn't, again, printed by a genuine automatic bank process of printing statements. These have been created manually by somebody in the Treasury Department of Lloyds Bank. And there was lots of other inquiries went on. Anyway, eventually, I obviously escalated my reports. Initially, it was to the Action Fraud in December 2022. I then reported it to my former police force, Dorset. They eventually, because I was applying pressure, it was clear that they didn't want to respond about it very much. They were hesitating, but I didn't know that they were involved at that point. And they confirmed that they had identified fraud. They then later refused to go into relevant information to confirm what they meant by that fraud, and they tried filing the whole lot as no further action. But prior to that, they'd sent 2 emails inadvertently confirming that they were allowing those those statements, criminal statements, to be produced by the banks. So at that point, it was a huge point for me, because I realised the police are involved. Not only are the police involved, the banks are involved. And of course, once I knew that, I realised, okay, we've got £167,000 missing from this building. What are the chances that it's only going to be relating to this building when you've got the police and the banks involved? This is going to be huge. This is going to have implications on a huge scale. Obviously, I didn't know how big it was going to get. I was still thinking, okay, so you've got Dorset Police involved, but maybe it's just Dorset Police in cahoots with Exbourne Manor. Didn't realise how big it was. I then found through research that hundreds, if not thousands, of buildings were all connected, okay, via the Companies House records, and all linked, whether it be through a director, through a shared address, through a managing agent, and you could work it out by putting all of the information into a spreadsheet. You could see a link all the way through it, and you were talking hundreds, if not thousands, of blocks of flats. So £167,000 missing one building. You equate that over thousands of buildings, and it'll be way more than I knew. I was just looking in that area. So what they've done is they've centralized property. All right, they've stolen property, and this is how they are trying to take over the world, which it says about in the Albert Pike letter. And they're using this system of fraud to do it. They're using the police creating fake non-molestation orders. The whole legal system is criminal. The whole legal system has been set up around this fraud. The intelligence agencies, the police, the military, the NHS, everything has been set up around this government fraud to give them the ability to steal money from the masses, control the masses, use the removal of the liability and the accountability of the fraud to harm the masses, all right? Whether it be through poisoning, radiation, harm children. The Freemasons are a huge part of this, okay? They are creating a system of create the problem, react to it, and then create a fake solution to sell to the public. That then maintains their level of control and their criminal network through that, making you believe you need them in terms of you need the law, you need the police, and you need these other organizations that they've set up, because they are the ones creating the problems, you see, to make you believe that you need this system they've got in there. And then by doing that, they can request more money, whether it be through tax, financial institutions. They then steal that money, funnel it into offshore accounts, and it goes back to certain individuals through the offshore account system into accounts. This pays for their holidays, all of their homes, their luxury their luxury cars, their drug trafficking. They're behind the drug trafficking, everybody. This is certain. Now, the police are behind the actual drug trafficking. Remember, it's problem, create the problem, create the solution through the rehabilitation and the health service. They're all in on it. They're all in on it, everybody, okay? And ultimately, so you've got a lot of money, trillions of pounds worth being stolen from the masses. But you've also got the element of the blood of the children in all of this, which is really ultimately the agenda in this, and how that ties in with the Vatican, the centralized system that they've got in place, linking back with the Vatican and the falsified prophetic agenda in all of this, okay, by probably a very small number of people that know about the plan in relation to the prophetic agenda. A lot of people in it don't have a faith at all. It was very clear that from people all around me, they had no faith in any creator. And when you tried to speak about it, they were quite angry about it, to be honest with you. So where was I going to go with that? So a lot of people won't know about the ultimate agenda in all of this. And this has been going on or planned for a very long time. The Freemasons have been around for a very long time, everybody. They were key, I believe, to the start of the Reformation, which started to form the governments. Okay, and everything has been an inversion. And you only have to look at the word government to realize that inversion. When you translate it to Latin, it means mind control. Govern, control, mind. Okay, and the Reformation began in Scotland in the 13th century, and it involved a German connection to a German company called Gutenberg's that was starting to print or have the ability to print rapidly, religiously connected material tying into the government. So remember, it's linked to the Freemasons. So this gave them the ability to start creating a system, primarily behind it all at the top, to launder money in relation to the blood of the children, okay, and organ harvesting, the blood of the children, the blood of the innocents, and how that tied into what I believe is a certain number of people that have established an ability to extend life through the continuation of changing their blood and through the continuation of organ harvesting. And this is where I believe you got the vampire element in this, that came in, etc. And this is probably why 2 days before Jimmy Savile died is the first article I can find where King Charles claimed that he was a relative of Vlad the Impaler. Vlad the Impaler was the origin of Dracula. And when you research, I don't think it's a coincidence that Vladimir Putin has a similar first part of his name, Vlad the Impaler, because when I researched Vladimir Putin, it came up with a name linking with Russia that then links to Bacardi. And Bacardi has the emblem of a bat, okay, which ties back in with vampirism. This is all in my document. So this has been going on for a very long time, everybody, all right? And the blood is key. It's very obvious that what they've been doing is harvesting, stealing the blood and the organs from the innocent, and they're using the healthcare system to do that, all right, to prolong, I believe, from the evidence, people's lives. And there's even articles, okay, that were coming out. Can't remember, I haven't got it in front of me, but they were literally saying they've almost got the ability for immortality through the circulation of the blood and other things. Now, of course, they can still die, you know, if there's trauma activity to their bodies, etc. But because it's new blood and young blood, it's, I think, going in, obviously it means it rejuvenates their body. And the adrenochrome element of this is probably a bit of it's definitely an element of this. Adrenochrome is where the blood of the terrorized children apparently gets drained. The adrenal gland gets drained into the blood, and this creates potentially now I've heard some interesting information I'll come to in a minute, but potentially creates almost a drug effect through the blood of the children via that adrenochrome. And of course, a lot of these children, if it's really going on, which the evidence says is overwhelming, suggests it is, will be murdered after they have been terrorized, tortured, had their blood taken. And you are all paying for this, everybody. You are all paying for this. Every time you pay tax, you know, which is something you don't have to pay now. All right, by paying tax under the Terrorism Act, you are actually a terrorist. Under Section 15 of the Terrorism Act, it says in there that if you have any, can't remember the exact wording, but it's basically you don't even have to know it's being used in terrorism. You just have to think it may be being used in terrorism, and you don't have to pay that, all right, because you become a terrorist. And this is critical to all of you, because this is your way, through my evidence, to stop paying all tax until a safeguarded system in place, which is very, very easy. We're all soldiers here, which is very, very easy to implement. Okay, a transparent, safeguarded system where the people become the auditors, which will protect humanity and creation from its leaders. All right, so if you're a leader, and I don't think we should be using the word governments now, and, you know, councillors, etc., they're all criminals. Okay, they are all involved in the blood of the children. They're all compromised by it. Not necessarily literally them taking the blood, but it's about the blood, and they're all part of it. Now, a lot of them would have been enticed along the way through sin, such as the sex in relation to it, the orgy parties, which are clearly linked into this, the drugs, the part of it, obviously the finances, the cars, the holidays, etc. So there's a lot of ways that they've manipulated people into being part of the system. What was I going to say a moment ago? There was something I was going to mention. It's gone out of my head now. There was something I was going to mention, wasn't there? Anyway, where was I going to go with this? So what we need is human trafficking. What we need is a transparent system, and we need to compel that transparent system. Now, it's they're not going to come out with the truth, it seems. Okay, so again, you know, it's not something I say lightly, but I think many of them will realize now what they're part of, and they're almost stuck in this hell themselves, especially with my evidence now coming out. So you know, they wouldn't have known, most of them, about I hope, about the torturing of the children and the blood element of this, but they would have been part of the financial side of it, you know, whether it be the avoiding the tax. Because what this does is all of these large organizations, they've centralized to this criminal network, they will not be paying hardly any tax, all right? And if they are, it just goes back out into the offshore account system and back to them. So you're all being completely exploited and victimized, those of you that are innocent in this. I saw a video somebody's done on TikTok. He's talking about what's going on, and he's saying a lot of the same stuff that I am, and he's saying we're very short on time. And he says it's the Full Disclosure Act is something that he's doing. I can't remember his name. Someone might know on here on TikTok. And he says that there's about less than 1% of humanity are actually good people, okay, willing to do the right thing, okay, for the sake of the innocents. He says about 85% people he claims are evil that are compromised by this. Now, I don't necessarily believe they're all evil. I believe they're all compromised by it. I think we've got a huge number of people that are compromised either by, like I've said, by the fraud, the sex, the drugs, and potentially some of the more serious stuff of the abuse of the children, and possibly even the blood of the children, and how that relates. The other amount, which is a fairly big chunk of people, just, he calls them potato heads, which made me laugh. The not NPCs, non-playing character, I believe, who are literally just don't want to know. They're just focused on watching Coronation Street. They don't want to know what's going on, because they'll come out their comfort zone. Now, they've been indoctrinated to be like that, everybody, all right? Don't take it out on these people. These people, like many of us, have been programmed through the media and through all of these other things going on to make them be like that, okay? So don't be angry at those. And I would say, even, don't be angry. I mean, there's no point getting angry about this. Absolutely no point getting angry. It's very easy to be angry about it. But I wouldn't even be angry at the people that are, you know, running the fraud and not involved in the crimes against the children, you know. There's no point being angry, all right, because that doesn't, there is no need. Oh, someone just had a message. There is no need for violence from everybody, but there is a need for people to not comply and to follow the same strategy to end this. It's very, very important. There's no point having little pockets of groups that are, most of them are compromised, unfortunately, all right? They position people, the likes of the Rapid Response, the likes of the peace officers, the peacekeepers. Pretty much most groups that you're seeing are part of this, and they've been made probably some sort of promises. They are probably compromised by the finances, the sex, the drugs, or something else. They might be part of the doomsday cult that's linked into this, because there is a doomsday cult connection in all of this. So, but there's no point getting angry. We've got to remain calm, peaceful, and we've got to be the sensible ones in this, the rational ones in all of this, because they have lost their rationality. The world control system has no rationality, okay? They are not thinking clearly. They are lost. They are lost. And a huge part of this is going to be the international drug trade, because obviously as soon as you start introducing the likes of cocaine and other addictive substances, that removes the irrationality. So what a lot of them will be doing is using your money to pay for their addictions, which will be a vast amount of money, okay? And they've got a constant supply from you, because most of you are still just paying. You're actually paying for your own demise and ultimately the end of creation, okay? That's what you're actually doing if you're continuing to pay the tax, all right? Because all of the evidence suggests that literally everything is at stake. All of creation is at stake, according to this. And where else was I going to go with that? Okay, so I'm going to read you just some of the evidence. So we need a system where, you know, you can imagine if you've got a leader, whether it be local, national, or international leader, or, you know, somebody who is rallying the people together when they need to be, coming up with ideas, driving new methods to deal with problems. You know, you need some sort of leaders, and people, a lot of people want somebody to be a leader, okay, because they don't know what to do in certain situations. They need to go to somebody for advice, or they need to highlight a problem that they need addressing with more people, you see. So you need some sort of leadership. But when you have a system of transparency, so if you were a local leader, for example, for a town, one of several leaders for a town, the local spending, public spending for that town needs to be made completely transparent for everyone living in that town. It's easily done, okay, through a transparent online banking system. Easy. So everyone living in that town can see the money that those leaders are helping to make the decision on how to spend the money and where it needs to be spent, along with the, obviously, the correct democratic system in place. There is no democracy at the moment, okay? There is no democracy, okay? It's completely fixed because of this system of fraud. They all have the interest of this fraud. Every single party, Rupert Lowe, someone mentioned a moment ago, compromised, part of it. They are all parts of this and are compromised by the blood of the children. The crimes against the children and the trillions of pounds worth of fraud linked to the drugs and the sex trafficking and sex trade, legal and illegal, everybody. It's huge. So you cannot trust any of them. Okay, you cannot trust any of them. And in fact, you cannot trust anyone, I suspect, unless they're talking about this company's house fraud. All right, and this is why I'm saying to people, don't worry about sending me any videos now, unless they are talking about the company's house fraud in those videos. I don't trust it. We can't trust it. And I'm going to show you some information now as to how big this is, okay? How big this is. And I'm not going to be saying Happy Easter at all, because everything is a deception, okay? Christmas Day is a deception. They're getting you celebrating the sacrifice of babies, according to the evidence, okay? So this is not... they've infiltrated and possibly... They've certainly infiltrated all three main Abrahamic faiths, and they've implemented a system of blood in relation to those faiths to try and normalize it. Particularly the Muslim faith is important in all of this, because the Muslim faith talks about draining the blood from the animals in their slaughters. And I suspect from my evidence, and it's fairly significant, everybody, that that blood is being used after it's been refined in the transfusions within people's bodies in the healthcare system. Not all of the time, possibly, but I absolutely believe that's been happening at some point. And then them stealing that blood from that body. Of course, this creates the motive to create fake illnesses. And this is where I believe they've actually created cancer. I think it was deliberately implemented and is being created using the technology they have in place. That's why the symptoms are exactly the same for COVID and a lot of illnesses as they are for radiation, from electromagnetic radiation, which is what the cell towers use, emit, according to the research. So, of course, they want you in the healthcare system, okay? Now, these people, someone said true evil. I think you've got a group of people, okay, who don't know about the end of creation. Okay, the end of creation agenda, the ultimate agenda in this. I think you have a very small number of people with that agenda and are trying to formulate a plan on possibly doing that using the collider technology. And interestingly, I'll come to that later because otherwise I'm going to be deviating off. But I think you have a fairly significant number of people, possibly the black nobility families, I don't know, or someone around them, that are so scared of death that they are willing to sacrifice the innocents to live longer. Okay, it's quite ironic, really, because they're the ones that seems that have infiltrated the faith groups. So they've either created or infiltrated the faith groups because of a lack of faith to create the blood element in through those faith groups to extend the life due to a fear of death. That's what I think is going on in this. All right. But ultimately, like I've said, a small number of people at the very top that are planning on ending all of creation. And that possibly depends on how this is determined. It's also possible, because we have to think of all possibilities in this. It's also possible that I am someone far more significant than I ever imagined in all of this, and that a lot of the information, an elaborate set of information and evidence involving many people, are trying to get me to believe that there is a risk to all of creation in all of this because of who I may be in this. There is a possibility of that, but I don't want to rely on that at the moment. I don't know that. So at the moment, I've got to say to all of you and those of you who are innocent, look, I think these threats are real based on the evidence. Here's the evidence. This is why. This is what I think you should do about it. That we can't allow the children to suffer anymore. And on the very basis of this, like I keep saying, if everything else is a deception, we still have a criminal financial system in place by our leaders. We can't have that. You can't have a criminal system. It's been inverted. Okay, it's criminal under their own legislation, their own criminal laws that they've created. So they're mocking all of humanity, but they've written it down, and they've said that when they get exposed, then they've got nowhere to go in this. You know, you had the letter, the Silent Weapons of Quiet Wars document that appears to have been, if it's real and it fits all of my evidence, in 1954, that was supposedly exposed. And it talks about in there about taking the children from families. It talks about deceiving you through media and alcohol and sex, keeping you distracted, making you work so hard that you don't know what's really going on, the truth, causing you to feel emotionally drained and depressed. This was all written in a document. If you send me an email, you can have the document. I've still got it. It's called Silent Weapons of Quiet Wars. There's several documents I've got. It's a very interesting document. It mentions the Rothschilds in that document. And this was apparently released in 1954, became available in 1954, not to the general public. It was supposedly, if it's true, left on a photocopier at some point. Anyway, 1954 is the year that the CERN was originally founded. Okay, the foundation behind the Large Hadron Collider and the collider technology in all of this. And that is the year after the Queen was coronated, and which was 1953. And that's the same year that the MK Ultra program began. So you can see how this all connects. Now, I'm going to try not to look at the screen. I'm already getting stingy eyes just looking at it. Because the information, if you haven't heard me saying it, you've got to think revelations. You've got to think falsified prophecies in everything that's happening. And there's a revelation that says that people will be seek death and not be able to find it. And the only way that they'd be able to do that, is to trap your conscience in a body that you can't control, and you want to die because you're suffering in that body, but you can't because they're controlling it. That's the only way they can achieve that. And this is where the Elon Musk, it seems, fits into this, and the technology and artificial intelligence and transhumanism. If you go and look at Neuralink, it was created in 2016, the same year that the Pizzagate scandal became exposed. That's not a coincidence, I suspect, everybody. The same year that the crimes against the children, the blood of the children, was being exposed as linking into the system, the political system, in relation to America and Hillary Clinton. So Neuralink is about a chip or technology that they can put in your brain to enable that. Now, they're claiming it's just to help disadvantaged people, whether they can't see or, if somebody's disabled, etc. But the revelation says, and this would give the ability, as I've said, to make people seek death and not be able to find it. Okay, and I think that revelation is false. I think that was written by a very sinister group of people before these people that are now in control of the system. So these people may be thinking, well, we've got to make these revelations come true, otherwise there is no creator. But if those revelations were created by a sinister group of individuals, then of course they're not meant to be fulfilled. And of course, would the true creator that created moral conscience want to trap humanity in a body so that they want to die that can't? Of course the creator wouldn't do that, because moral conscience tells us that love thy neighbor is the foundation of all of life, or it should be the foundation and everything. In other words, in a rational state of mind, we all treat everybody how we want to be treated. Now, if that had been in place right from the start, none of this would have happened. They wouldn't have created a system that actually enables them to steal from everybody else, because they don't want to be stolen from by them. They wouldn't want to be stolen from themselves, would they? You see, everybody. All right. So that is the golden rule. Someone's put it there. It's absolutely the golden rule in this. And what the system has done has removed the irrationality. Okay, through drugs, alcohol, poisoning, radiation, working too hard, remove the irrationality. That then removes the moral conscience, which separates us from the creator. Now, these people are far away from moral conscience. Okay, they're in a system of, they've had all, the people that are the rich in the world, let's say, the rich and who are stealing it. They're rich because they're stealing from the masses. Most of them, I would think, are probably rich because of what I'm talking about. Now, they've had everything they've ever wanted, okay? Ironically, that's probably separated them from rationality and the creator. And what do I mean by that? Well, I, for example, know that when I come out of my comfort zone, I feel incredible when I go back to my comforts. Okay, so if I go for a swim under a waterfall when I'm really cold under there, or I swim in a lake, or I go for a hard run, or a hard bike ride, or whatever, when you relax and you come back to a comforting time, you appreciate it, and it just makes you appreciate everything else a little bit more. These people because they've had everything, you know, and some people that don't have materialistic things, they still have the ability to enjoy nature and to value what's really important in life, and they have to come out of their comfort zones. Okay, they have to make hard decisions, they have to work to an extent that these people don't have to. So these people are stuck in this mind numbing situation of they've got everything. There's no fulfillment through appreciating the little things in life, because they've become too materialistic. So they've actually caused themselves to separate, I suspect, from the moral conscience and from the creator, because the creator goes hand in hand with nature. So if you're just creating science and you're just focusing on technology all of the time, watching television all of the time, on your games consoles all of the time, and you're not actually appreciating nature, then you're actually separating yourself from the creator, I believe, and you lose that appreciation, that value. Anyway, let me come to the whole point I was coming on tonight, because I want to get this evidence out to everybody whilst I can. And the document will be going out, but you know, it's just quite time consuming, and I'm so glad that at the moment I'm spending the time on the evidence. Okay, I'm just going to try and find the right screen. Oh, sugar, did I take them? Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, my eyes are definitely stinging just from looking at the screen a bit. Okay, so last night, if you were listening to or the night before, I can't remember, we were talking about the connection to the blood of the children and the organ harvesting in multiple ways into the Freemasons criminal network from the research of the space flight that's just been going on, the Artemis 2 to the moon, which I suspect is probably not even happening. Okay, and I suspect, based on the evidence, they're using these space expeditions to launder money through those space exhibitions in relation to the blood of the children, and obviously everything else that's coming with that, the international drug trade, the cars, the properties, etc. Because you'll have a lot of people involved in the financial element of it. Okay, so we were talking about that, and we also talked about the variant, the new COVID variant, that they're now, it seems, as they're becoming exposed and panicking, they are now trying to suggest is spreading around the world. Is it called Arcadia? Not Arcadia. I haven't got it in front of me. Cicadia. And it seems as though they've only given that name in the last week or two after I was exposing the connection to the meningitis and the plan to blind you all, potentially using the screens, which is one of the things I didn't mention earlier when I was talking about all of this. I suspect that the plan was to blind you all through your screens, and this would explain why they have put a lot of the technology or effort into getting you all on your devices, whether it be at home, at work, or whatever, and that gives that ability to blind you. And of course, if that is their plan and they do blind a lot of creation, most people will do anything to actually see again. And this is where the potential Neuralink will come in. Okay, and I suspect that was the plan for the mark of the beast. Think about it. Okay, very difficult decision, isn't it? You know about the blood of the children, you know about all this criminal network, they then make you blind, and you know, okay, what's going on, and yet they're offering you technology to let you see again. Okay, they're offering technology to let you see again. Now, most people will take that, and then, of course, that then gives them the ability potentially to trap your conscience in a body that you can't control, to fit the revelation of seeking death but not be able to find it. So the key in this is, we need to stop this system 100%. This is a beast system. Okay, once the system changes, everything changes forever. Okay, and I know what needs to be done, at least on a transitional basis. Is absolutely key that I believe that I need to have some sort of an involvement in safeguarding humanity and children, because I was in the police. I know what's been going on. I know how they've been doing it, the fraud, the criminal network. I know all of the problems it's been caused. I've got a lot of the evidence as to who's involved, you know, and it's very, very important that I have some sort of element of helping humanity and helping the children at least implement a new system in all of this. Right, so we mentioned this last night, so I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the NASA side of things. And this is, again, this is not a coincidence. This evidence is just, it's unreal. Listen to this from the last sort of 48 hours, 24 hours. So I'd already mentioned, okay, that NASA was created in 1958. It's one letter short of a anagram of Satan. That's deliberate, obviously, everybody, okay? 1958. It was created, NASA, within, I'm pretty sure it's either this within 2 weeks or the other bit I'm going to tell you. Within 2 weeks of Charles being initiated to become the Prince of Wales. Okay, he was 9 years old in 1958, I believe. Remember, Wales is where Company's House was based. Wales has the red flag, okay, or the red dragon in the flag. Wales, the red flag, the red dragon is mentioned in Revelations as potentially linking to the Antichrist in all of this. Interestingly, Wales also connects to King Arthur, who we're led to believe is a good symbology in all of this. I think that's a deception linking into this, because the King Arthur element ties into the Honourable Society of the Knights of the Round Table, and that was set up in 1720, and I actually connect to that very quickly from my former school. So it's possible they were trying to set me up as the Antichrist in this, somehow linking in with King Arthur. Well, obviously I need to avoid that. I need to make sure that I am doing what is right in moral conscience, and therefore right in the Creator's eyes, because I believe the Creator is good, and I believe the Creator gave us moral conscience for a reason, and the whole system has been set up to deviate away from moral conscience. It's very, very clear. Behind the drugs, behind the alcohol, behind the working too hard, behind the poisoning, behind the radiation, behind the cloud spraying, removing the rationality, removing the moral conscience, separating you from the Creator. So if you bring that back and you avoid that system and create a system where you have full accountability and liability, which means the healthcare system will be not based on facilitating the problems. It will be based on helping people recover from their drug addictions, from their alcoholism, from their mental health issues. It's very clear it's all been done deliberately. They've caused the mental health issues. This is very clear. This is very, very clear, everybody. Yet me too blocked. So, yeah, so also Wales, I think, is relevant because not only is it where Charles, so NASA was formed 1958. Charles became the Prince of Wales in 1969. That's the same year that the, who needs blocking? Oh my goodness. Who needs blocking? I'm trying not to look at the screen too much, you see. I would advise you probably don't look at the screen, guys, and then you don't need to worry about it. Just listen to the information and verify it on your device. If you want, you know, you can actually go through and check everything. Spot vision, is it? Is it spot vision needs going? Spot vision. S dot vision. Yeah, dot vision. Yeah, okay. Yeah, got it. Goodbye. But I would advise you, you know, then you don't have to worry about these people on here. Don't worry about looking at your screen. All right, there's no need. There's no need. Verify the evidence if you want. Spend your time doing that if you want, rather than looking at the screen. With bearing in mind what I'm telling you about this, there doesn't seem too many people concerned about the blood of the potential of being blinded. Now I know I'm sort of looking every now and then, but I'm one person. You've got 105 people on here that are, you know, potentially at risk from this. So, and I'm trying not to look at it too much. So we talked about this variant last night as well, and how that links back to Exbourne Manor, it seems, from the Company's House records. And we looked at the meningitis again, and how that links back to Exmoor Manor, where my investigation began. You're talking almost immediately from the research. Anyway, so my brain's going off on tangents here. So Wales, its name for Wales is I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but it's CYMRU. Okay, with a company involved in the blood of the children, the adrenochrome is CYM. Okay, and then I've researched, which you'll see in my document when you get it, and you probably heard me talking about it, the blood infection scandal of the 70s or 80s that links quite importantly to Wales. Okay, and how the Welsh Football Association is working with the Welsh government to try and facilitate blood donor systems. Okay, and that all links back in. Okay, the Welsh Blood Association, or whatever it was called, massively links into the crimes against the children, into the fraud. The Welsh Football Association links into the fraud as well. Now, I don't know where this all definitely originated, this if you want to call it evil. It's definitely infiltrated all over the world. Every religion is infiltrated by it. Every society is infiltrated by it. So you had the NASA connection is very relevant to the timing of King Charles. And in the last couple of days, someone identified that the NASA insignia, for whatever reason, and I think we're going to see why, has the name of Meatball. Now, I'd never heard of this, okay, but I've verified it. I've gone into the research, and it says that the NASA insignia has the name Meatball. Okay, so I'm just going to read to you. The information states that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration has 3 officials insignias. The NASA seal, the NASA insignia, in brackets known as the Meatball, and the NASA logo type known as the worm. Now, I don't think it's going to be a coincidence. Look where this leads. Pretty amazing. This is now possibly relevant in that the crimes against children is significantly linked to the research and the possibility of being the remains of those children, and it won't just be children, but I think that's predominantly their target, and the remains of the adults being put back into the food chain. And this is where I think you've got the undertakers are linking in with this, with the organ harvesting, and this is why I think you're seeing the information coming out about undertakers being convicted of falsifying burials. Okay, and I think this is very, very relevant. I think it's possible they were giving me that as a sign, okay, to lead me in this, to get me this evidence. It's possible that they're forced into a position where there's so much evidence now about corrupt undertakers that will be centralized to this criminal network that they're having to expose convictions and publicize convictions against certain individuals, because the evidence, if you listen to me the other night, suggests they are trying to hide some of the filing history information around those convictions, which would have given me more evidence and ammunition against the system in relation to those undertakers. So they are trying, it seems, to minimize the damage, knowing that I will pick up on it and get more evidence. So the logo type for NASA was retired from official use from the 22nd of May 1992, the same year that the Vatican became a legal entity and the company's house register started to become electronic. It was reinstated as a logo, as a secondary logo actually, on the 3rd of April 2020. So this is the Meatball logo, okay? This is the meat. It's not an actual meatball. It doesn't even look like a meatball. They've called it a meatball, all right? And I think we're going to see why. It was reinstated on April the 3rd, 2020 as a secondary logo during a key time of the COVID situation and 2 days before the significant resignation of Keir Starmer from the Death Penalty Project Limited, linking to Madeleine McCann. Oh, I missed a bit. Around the same time, so in the last week or so, someone has suggested that I research Campbell's meatballs. So this was from 2 different people, separate people, both relating to meatballs, okay? Look how relevant this is. This is not a coincidence, everyone. Right? And I'm not even reading all of my emails. This is just from some messages that have been sent to me. So someone suggested I research Campbell's meatballs, and look what I found. Okay, this now becomes significant because of a company called Premier Foods PLC. Research shows Premier Foods PLC is a British manufacturer headquartered in St Albans, Hertfordshire. The group owns many well-known brands, including Mr. Kipling, Ambrosia, Bird's Custard, Andrew Delight, Home Pride Cooking Sauces, Lions, which becomes relevant in a minute, Sharwood's, Lloyd Grossman Sauces, which becomes relevant in a minute, Oxo, Bisto, Bachelors, Vesta Meals, and Plant-tastic. You'll notice I mentioned Ambrosia. Well, Ambrosia is already relevant to the blood of the children. There's an organisation that was called Ambrosia that was actually involved in the rich being able to pay for transfusions from younger people into their body to try and extend their lives. Okay, it's already been mentioned about Ambrosia, and the timing of Ambrosia is critical because Ambrosia, that company, was actually founded in 1917, which is the same year as the Balfour Declaration, which means it links in with Israel, which is massively connected to all of this and the blood of the tortured children, and how that ties into the falsified prophecies and linking in with the Vatican again. And Lloyd Grossman, you've just heard me mention Lloyd Grossman Sauces, is also mentioned. He's the guy on the chef on the television a few years ago, and he's linked directly to the Rothschilds. Literally, Lloyd Grossman is linked directly to the Rothschilds via a company called the London School of Economics and Political Science, with links to an important Egyptian exploration company and the British Museum, which therefore becomes relevant to the Albert Pike letter written to Mazzini in 1871, which sets out the three World War deception, tying in with the Vatican. These are through the Company's House records, okay? An immediate connection to the London School of Economic and Political Science, to Lloyd Grossman, and to the Egyptian Exploration Company, which links to me quite personally, which you're going to read a bit later, and to the British Museum, which links to me with, well, put it this way, the year I was born, that letter was removed from public view. The Albert Pike letter, which was kept in the British Library Museum, apparently, until 1977. And that letter was set out the Free World War deception to bring about the light of Lucifer and to take over the world. And just a quick recap, it's probably one of the most important bits of evidence in all of this, and probably a go-to document to see what their plan is in this. Because the Albert Pike letter was written by Albert Pike, high-level occultist Freemason who set up the Scottish Rite Freemasons, and he wrote that to Mazzini, who was the head of the Illuminati, linking in with the Vatican, and it set out the three World War deceptions to take over the world, okay, and to bring about the light of Lucifer in all of this, which at the moment the evidence suggests that it is to end all of creation. Now, I have to consider if there's something really important about me in this, does that somehow link in with me? That, I don't know. However, that's something I have to consider. But at the moment, it looks as though taking over the world is obvious. All right, they've centralized everything to this criminal network. Okay, it's very, very clear. And they've got land registry involved. They've got people in every bank. They've got people in every government organization, every local departments in organizations linked to the government, even within obviously the private organizations as well. It's massive, everyone. So we've got this company. So where are we going? So where was I going? Ambrosia, I've mentioned the Albert Pike letter. It's just unbelievable where this leads. It really is quite unbelievable, everybody. Premier Foods also produces cakes under the Cadbury's name, using the brand under license. Cadbury companies have also featured throughout my research, as shown elsewhere. Premier Foods is listed on the London Stock Exchange and is a constituent of the FTSE 250 index. The company was founded by Harry Solomon and David Thompson in London in 1975. Remember Thompson, I'm going to come back to him in a minute, as Hillsdown Holdings. The name came from Thompson's house, Hillsdown. His son, Richard Thompson, worked for his father after his education at Hailbury. In 1981, it acquired Lockwood Foods Limited, which was in administrative receivership. I suspect Lockwood Foods Limited may relate to Michael Lockwood, who was the head of the Independent Office for Police Conduct until I started exposing the fraud, and then suddenly he was supposedly arrested for sexual offences and removed as the head of the Serious Fraud Office. That was a deception. He's linked into the fraud. So I suspect that's going to link to his family. Research shows David Brian Thompson was born in 1936 and supposedly died in December 2020. He was the co-founder of Hillsdown Holdings, as we said, one of the United Kingdom's largest food businesses, having initially worked as a meat trader at Smithfield Market. David Thompson helped his father to float his meat wholesale business in 1966, which is the same year as the foundation of the Church of Satan, and when the World Trade Center disaster started to be built. Now, 1966, remember, we've got the surname of Thompson. Arthur Thompson was a gangster, according to the research, in Glasgow, a very feared gangster who was affiliated to the Kray twins. And the information suggests, and is supported through my research, that the Krays were collaborating with Arthur Thompson on how to get rid of or take control of, shall we say, the Beatles, the biggest band in the world around the time. I don't think it's a coincidence that the conspiracy was that Paul McCartney died in a car crash in 1966, and that they used a fake Paul McCartney ever since as a deception. Now that becomes very relevant to a lot of the other evidence. You've got Abbey Road tying into this, the most famous album cover in the world. And there's a reason, I suspect, and I think I found the reason, that only 3 of them were wearing suits made by Savile Row, the Nutters of Savile Row. It's all in the words, everybody, Nutters of Savile Row. And one of them wasn't. Now, I haven't checked, actually. Probably Paul McCartney that isn't wearing that suit. And I think that was probably them saying, or giving a bit of a heads up, that's not the real Paul McCartney in this. Anyway, that's a whole nother load of evidence. So 1966, the year of the foundation of the Church of Satan, David Thompson acquired Chevley Park Stud near Newmarket. Famous horses coming from Chevley include Party Politics, the 1992 Grand National winner. Look at that year as well, everybody. I didn't notice that until just now. 1992 again, when the company's house register started to become electronic, and the it's unreal, and the Catholic Church became a legal entity. So he's linked to the horse trade, okay, which means the bloodstock trade again, which means the evidence hiding the blood of the children through the bloodstock trade, which is all the way through this, everybody. But it gets even more interesting. So, where are we? So this horse that won the Grand National is owned by his wife, Patricia. He was also an investor in Queen's Park Rangers Football Club, which has already been connected directly to Stephen Fry in my research, who was the head of the Mind Group and is, I believe, still the head or chair or president, whatever, of the Mind Charity Group, right, which relates to mental health, which ties into everything I'm telling you. They're creating the mental health problems, okay? Obviously, it's now obvious. That was founded originally in 1946, the same year as the Tavistock Institute, the same year that the, what else was it, Tavistock Mind Group at UNICEF. UNICEF, the organisation which was clearly now set up to actually steal the children from international conflicts in relation to the blood and the organ harvesting and the crimes against the children. And it was the year after that the doomsday clock began. Okay, and then 1948 is when the NHS was founded. It's also when the Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom, remember what I've told you, everything has been set up around this, all right? Everything has been set up around the Doomsday Clock as well, which then links back in with the Vatican and everything I'm saying. And the Tavistock Institute was then integrated into the NHS, a mind control program. Now, this link to Queen's Park Football Club to Stephen Fry was established via the research, thanks to somebody else again that said, Gary, can you look at the Feversham historical child abuse scandal, where 3 people, I believe, were convicted, or 2, I can't remember, of historical child abuse in relation to the Feversham school, which links to the Mind charity. Okay, so now we have this connection here, and that is via to Stephen Fry via the Theatre Share PLC in the Feversham child abuse scandal research that they've done, and it links directly Queen's Park Rangers we're talking about to the evidence of Prince Harry wearing the skin of Madeleine McCann at the time of Jeffrey Epstein's arrest, which links directly now to Harvey Weinstein and to Jeffrey Epstein. Going back to David Thompson, he was married to Patricia Thompson, as we mentioned, and together they had 1 son, Richard Thompson, and 2 daughters, together with his wife. Thompson was appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire in the 2020 birthday honours for service to charity. It's unbelievable, isn't it? They're all in on it, everybody. You can see how the royalties relevant in this, with all these awards given out and knighting, etc. In May 1987, David Thompson stepped down from Hillsdown Holdings, selling 50% of his shares, and he became a non-executive director. In April 1989, he sold all of his shares. This is the same year that the World Wide Web was created for CERN, that links back to the evidence of Madeleine McCann and the as I've said, the skin of Madeleine McCann. In 1986, Hillsdown Holdings brought various food businesses from Beecham's that has already been linked directly to GlaxoSmithKline via the company's house research, and quickly to the Rothschilds, possible drug trafficking connections around David Icke, linked to China, to Justin Welby, to the Hakluyt International Advisory Board, which is shown on page 40 of the incorporation document of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, that connects most areas of the fraud together. And that organisation, the Hakluyt International Advisory Board, linked to the intelligence agencies, dissolved after I exposed it in 2024. In 1990, the company, so talking about the holdings company that he's part of, acquired Premier Brands. The MBO, led by Paul Judge of Cadbury Schweppes Foods and other products divisions, which included Thai Fu and Cadbury's drinks. It was bought by the private equity company Hicks, Muse, Tate and First in 1999. In 2002, it bought Nestlé's ambient food business. It was first listed on the London Stock Exchange in 2004. In 2004, it acquired the Ambrosia custard and rice pudding brand from the Coleman's division of Unilever. In February 2005, Premier Foods acquired Kraft Foods, ambient desserts, businesses including Bird's Custard and Angel Delight, which we mentioned earlier. This is just further down in the research, so it's just in here again. I'll just get to the... They also, in June 2005, Marlow Foods, makers of Quorn, was purchased, and this was followed in October by the acquisition of Cauldron, consolidating the 2 leading brands in the meat-free trade. I suspect these were used as a mockery to people trying to avoid meat, and possibly contained human meat deliberately. Now, I've researched Quorn, and straight away it's a criminal company, one of the companies I've looked at for Quorn. These are... Oh, Samantha. What's Samantha doing? I've just been told Samantha needs blocking. Don't really want to look at the screen if we can help it. Samantha, veterans, nothing to be proud of being in the army. Okay. I'm not going to block her for that. I have no respect for veterans or care workers. Well, look, Samantha, not everyone's going to be compromised by this. Some of them will, I was in the police, okay? And I did my best in the police, but obviously this is looking like everyone's criminal within the police. So, we've got to remember that not everyone is going to be involved in this. There's going to be a lot of people in it, but, well, you certainly haven't, Air Force Dave. Just reading the comments, I don't really... Veterans gave who freedom? Air Force Dave is a nut job. Right, Samantha, if you're going to be using derogatory language like that and causing problems on here, you're going to have to go. I'm just going to see kick and block because the truth hurts, Air Force Dave. Yeah, I'm sorry, Samantha. Yeah, definitely need to go. Definitely need to go. Probably not the real name, everybody. It's probably a man. It's probably Reynard Wilson from the 77th Brigade, who's linked to the blood of the children. He uses multiple names. So this is the military, I'm sorry to say. Many people are compromised in the military and all of this, but of course, I'm testament that there are going to be good people out there, because I was in the police, and that means there's going to be, I hope, good police. It's not seeming great at the moment, but of course, and it'll be the same with the military, I'm sure. But at the moment, everyone's a suspect. If they're not coming forward and they're not helping, then they have to be considered suspects in this. I think this is why you're getting a lot of, potentially, one of the reasons you're getting a lot of people unaliving themselves. When I actually, just quickly whilst on my mind, I remember 2 people unalived themselves very quickly when I was in Maidstone Police, in Kent Police. And you'd have had no idea there was anything wrong with them. I think they were both, one of them was a bobby on the beat. Yeah, that's right. He was the town centre bobby, and the other one was an office officer. And within, I want to say 2 weeks, 3 weeks of each other, they both killed themselves, supposedly. Now, with all of this coming out, it's possible, they were part of this and they couldn't live with what they were involved in. That's going to be a huge element of this. And that will be a big element within the military as well, because a lot of them are going to be involved in it. And a lot of the police are going to be involved in this. Any Freemason connections, they all need to be arrested, the Freemasons, as far as I'm aware, based on this. So anyway, getting back to this. In 2006, Premier Foods acquired the UK and Ireland business of Campbell's for £460 million. Brands included in the deal were Oxo, Bachelor's, Home Pride and Fray Bentos. The iconic Campbell's soup cans had to be rebranded as Bachelor's Condensed Soup, as the brand itself was not acquired, but labels still carried the label formerly Campbell's, same great taste. Similarly, Campbell's meatballs were rebranded as Fray Bentos meatballs. Now, obviously, that is how I got established this, by searching the meatballs. Well, they are behind Campbell's meatballs as well. Okay, now bearing in mind, this stemmed from the connection to NASA and meatballs. You never have thought it, would you? But here we are. Now this obviously means that this gives a whole new meaning to the movie Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. Bear in mind, you've got meatballs linking with NASA. Cloudy with a chance of meatballs. Cloudy with a chance of seeing a spaceship. Who knows? But it gives a whole new relevance to that movie. And guess when that movie came out? In 2009, which is the same year that I became a director of Expo Manor. It's the same year that Angels and Demons came out, the second movie in the Da Vinci Code, which is about CERN and the Vatican, the 2 big subjects in all of this and how it links to the blood of the children. It's also the same year that the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, the main company linking all areas of the fraud together, was founded within 2 weeks of me becoming director. You also had the Iranian Green Movement began, which links into the Iranian deception research. You've also had the movie 2012 came out that year, which relates to the links into CERN and the year 2012 and the end of the Mayan calendar, and David Icke saying the world will be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis. That's a movie about disaster, earthquakes, tsunamis, etc. See how this is all linking in. So anyway, Companies House shows that Premier Foods PLC, this company linking to a David Thompson, had been incorporated in 2004, and page 3 shows Jordan's Limited connecting directly to Exbourne Manor where my investigation began, and meaning it had been a criminal company. So that company that owns, acquired all of those other companies, that means they're all illegal. All right, if they are under a criminal company, that means the whole lot becomes criminal if they're actually under the records under that company, because that company is fraudulent and doesn't even exist, which means there's no accountability and liability, and there's fraud all the way through the whole lot, everybody. So that's a massive part of the food chain. Well, what does that mean? That means there's no accountability and liability. That means they can put things in that food, okay, and remove the accountability and they've removed the accountability and liability because it's an illegal company. All right, so it gives them the ability to poison the food and put things in the food as a mockery to you, such as human remains. And this is why you will find, if anything gets to a point where there's a legal process, then this is why you have out of court settlements a lot of the time. So they will use solicitors to convince the victim to settle out of court, because the solicitors are involved in the crimes against children, the apparent crimes against children, and they will increase a settlement amount so that it doesn't end up in a formal prosecution regarding the companies a lot of the time, you see, because then that starts shutting down the system, and you know, it will have more of an impact on this criminal network. What about David Thompson himself, who died supposedly in December 2020? Well, Companies House shows that he's linked to 38 companies, including Usborne Companies and Evergreen Properties London in brackets Limited. A document in its filing history on the 1st of January 1995 appears to have been doctored regarding the company number, which I'm finding a lot of them have been crossed out and they're changing the company number to fit as they're changing. Well, that's fraud. Okay, trying to make it seem as though it was registered correctly when it wasn't. That's possibly been done after I started my exposure. It also has, interestingly, an Algerman Bank Netherlands NV on there, and a company called J. Benning & Co. I haven't researched that, but Evergreen Companies linked to the research of Hillary Clinton and the Pizzagate scandal, which ties back in with the crimes against the children and the blood. And via research of Tommy Robinson, an Evergreen company links to an address of Unit 1, St Stephen's Court, St Stephen's Road in Bournemouth, right near Exbourne Manor, or not far away at all from Exbourne Manor, where my investigation began, and to the name from that research of Caroline Kellaway, that connects to all three of my families, Julian Assange, and a doomsday cult that's linked to the Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom and Robert Maxwell, the father of Ghislaine Maxwell, and a likely link to the craze via Caroline Kellaway. So that's on that bit of research, and the reason I'm saying this is because it appears to link in with this research now, and a bit later you'll find a confirmation that it does link straight to Exbourne Manor again via David. You're going to see it's unbelievable. So another area of research in relation to the ice cube neutrino device at Antarctica, which links into the information and research of the collider technology, also leads to Julian Assange and back to this exact same address, St Stephen's Court, St Stephen's Road, Bournemouth, with a connection to an Egyptian exploration company. The exact same Egyptian exploration company that I mentioned at the beginning. Okay. An Usborne company with Lyons and Kaplan on its incorporation document. Lyons is part of the Premier Foods. Okay. If you remember, we said Lyons, and I said, remember that for later. Lyons. Okay. Also links to this exact same address. Unit 1, St Stephen's Court, St Stephen's Road, Bournemouth. Not even the same road, not even the same building, the same unit within a building. And that is shown in the research of the Grenfell Tower fire that links to the Temple Trust and the Goldsmith family, that links with the Rothschilds. Another area, I've mentioned that. Thompson, so back to the record of David Thompson, also connects to Parkstone Limited, that had been incorporated as Hoopers Limited in 1981. Parkstone is the name of an area in Poole in Dorset, not far from Exbourne Manor, and where my wife had been living with her father during our staged introduction in 2007. Anthony Richard Brown connects Parkstone Limited to 30 companies, including J.E. Beale Public Limited. Let this sink in, everybody, how massively important this is now, what I'm going to be telling you. So this is David Thompson, who I think is going to be a descendant or relative of Arthur Thompson linked in with the Krays. Remember, my family already associated with the Krays. We've already got that information, okay? And there's multiple other connections as well. But this is now linking in with doomsday cults, end of the world scenarios, collider technology, all coming back to me via the company's house research. Now, this isn't, it can't be to discredit or undermine me, okay? Because the evidence is there. Everyone's verifying this evidence. So it cannot be to undermine me. It cannot be to, lock me up for mental health issues. It can't be. I've already been through the system. They haven't tried that. They haven't tried sectioning me because they know I've got evidence of everything. So then you're looking at, I'm literally right at the center of all of this for whatever reason, which I'm key to this. But listen to it. Just listen to where this goes. So Thompson, from his name, directly from his record, we know it's him. Date of birth is the same and everything. Linking in with the horse trade, linking in with his food company, linking in with the connection into NASA. Okay, and we've already got multiple other connections into the space industry coming back to all of me and all of this. Well, here it says, where I've lost it now. So Anthony Richard Brown connects Parkstone Limited to 30 companies, including J.E. Beale Public Limited, that had been incorporated in 1912, the same year as the related Titanic disaster, linked to the Flemings, and the company dissolved in 2023 as I escalated the exposure. It has a forged register. The filing history shows that on the 3rd of February 2020, its registered address had been changed from 36 Old Christchurch Road in Bournemouth to KPMG Canada Square, Canary Wharf in London. Now, I recall when I was working at the police in Bournemouth Town Centre from 2006, I took my sergeants in, I think 2007 or 8, took my sergeants, and then I became a beat bobby for a particular area called Poole Hill in Bournemouth. And the research from the World Trade Center disaster linked straight to the office, in a security office that we used to go to on my patch, where I was the only beat bobby, okay, because you had response officers. At that point, I was a beat bobby on that area. I had responsibility for that particular area of Bournemouth, okay? And I remember that Beale's was a store. Remember, this is a Beale company we're looking at, with an address, former address, Old Christchurch Road, Bournemouth. It's that same location, everybody, where I was working. And it was a hub for security, okay, there in the square. If you know Bournemouth, you'll know in the middle of the town, you've got Bournemouth Square, where you've got the gardens leading off in two directions. One's towards the beach, the other one's off towards Koi Pond. And in that square area, yeah, you had a big building on the corner. That was Beale's, okay? And it was a hub for security officers, if you like, okay? And they were working closely with the office that I was working at, that's linked to the World Trade Center disaster, direct immediately, practically from the research. Oh no, it's a little bit away, that is, but it's from a World Trade Center company, goes into that, and then makes loads of other really critical connections. And they were working almost, collaboratively on the supposed crime in the town. Now, remember, this is a problem reaction solution criminal network. Even the Freemason lady, and you can have Freemason ladies, by the way, but I think there's a transgender infiltration in relation to that, where they're potentially not really women, but they're saying they're allowing women. Anyway, she admits that she's part of the Freemasons, and they create the problems, they create the crime, they create the paedophilia, for the reasons that I've told you. She also says that they take the children from the family. This is the Freemasons she's talking about. Now, it's possible that because of the massive deception in all of this, that the Freemasons have been set up as another scapegoat, and that there's another group potentially behind all of this. So, it might even be the Pharaoh Egyptians, who knows? But the Freemasons, we've got the evidence proving the Freemasons overwhelmingly are linked into this. You've got according to the research, 6 million Freemasons at least in the world. Anyway, so I recall this store, Bill's, in Bournemouth, okay? And it was a hub for security. In the office shown in the research of Valentine Fleming. Yeah, so that office that I was working at, just around the corner from Bill's, that also links in not only from the World Trade Center research, very, very quickly, but it links immediately from, and you would have heard me say it the other night, from the research of the Flemings, okay, linking to the Iona prophecy, the end of the world prophecy. Straight into that. Straight into who I believe is a record for Michelle Young, which links to the International Tribunal Courts of Natural Justice, where Gordon Bowden was sat, and that links to the Vatican and the blood of the tortured children via that as well, and Sasha Stone linking in with that. KPMG, so remember what I said, on the filing history, it changed its address from 36 Old Christchurch Road, Bournemouth, to KPMG Canada Square in Canary Wharf. Well, KMPG, I think it's KPMG, sorry, links directly to Amanda Pearson, the replacement Chief Constable of Dorset Police's Scott Chilton, who was moved after I was uncovering all of this as the exposure continued. He then resigned on the exact same day that I released the evidence of the Satanic Temple United Kingdom. I think they timed that deliberately for me to establish that connection, or for me to find, and then obviously get me drawn in to the satanic element of this, when actually it's a lot deeper than even that. Or they're trying to make it seem like it's satanic. Oh yeah. Now, from Amanda Pearson, the Chief Constable of Dorset, you have Skin and Clinton companies. Also straight into the fraud, of course, but you have Skin and Clinton companies. You also have a link to Duran Duran. And when you go into Duran Duran, Simon Le Bon's there. We're talking very, very quickly from Amanda Pearson, everyone. Okay, you have a Skin company. And what else was it from Duran? Yeah, there's another Skin company coming in from Duran Duran. Remember, the entertainment industry goes hand in hand with this, all right? This gives them the ability to use special effects, makeup, masks, acting, all of this other stuff as part of the deception against humanity. All the way through this, connected to the entertainment industry. Yeah, I've mentioned that. The Canary Wharf connection, remember the address is Canary Wharf with that KPMG. Well, Canary Wharf makes the links to the leader of Qatar, Sherborne, my wife's former employer, the Israel attacks in 2023, and to the Manchester Arena bombing, and lots more other evidence, again, very quickly. An article from 2025 shows that the last Bill's store, surprise puppets. Not sure why everyone's, what people shouldn't really be looking at the screens, but look at him. He's begging. He's already banned me. Oh yeah, that's gonna be probably Reynard Wilson. Reynard Wilson is somebody that was associating and trying to undermine the evidence with Anthony Roberts from Expool Manor. And he had an alias. He's got at least 3 alias names that I'm aware of. All big needs to be blocked. These trolls, Vanessa. Remove these trolls, Vanessa. Yeah, they're just going to bring... I would advise you all, because they're just going to be putting people on here. I would advise any of you that are innocent in this, just to ignore it. I mean, you don't even need to be commenting. You just need to be either recording this, listening to it, or verifying the evidence yourself to confirm everything I'm saying is true. So an article from 2025 shows that the last Bealls store closed that year after trading since 1881. So it's very clear that the exposure caused that entire company, and it's a big company at a location in Scotland as well, to close down. Nigel Beresford Ears Beale is in the People record and connects J.E. Beale Public Limited, the company we're talking about, to 26 companies, including Azalea's RTM Company Limited, that had been incorporated in 2024, and it has a registered address of care of House and Son, Christchurch Road, Bournemouth, linking immediately with the research of Diane Bisson, a director of Exbourne Manor, where my investigation began, and who was facilitated my removal as a director for refusing to file forged bank documents. She then changed her name later, so she was Diane Bisson Simmons. She lived out in what's it called? I've forgotten the name of it now. Just along the coast a little bit. Highcliffe. Massively implicated in this, in the crimes, facilitating the apparent crimes against children. Definitely in the in terms of the international government fraud. Now, interestingly, she's connected to seismic companies. Now, seismic generally relates to earthquakes, okay, which then ties back in to the research of the earthquake technology and the falsified prophecies and all of this. But it could, remember, I keep saying it could be a deception for me to expose it because they know something about me. Now, it's interesting that they created that company in 2024, which was 2 years after I was starting to expose the fraud, and they deliberately put House and Son. Now, they knew I would pick up on that. Okay, they knew I would identify and make that link to Exbourne Manor, or they knew there was a good chance I would. So it appears as though that may have been deliberate. Nigel Beresford Earls Beer also connects to Island Reach Pool Limited, that had been incorporated in 1997. Critically, Michael John Hope of 84 Temple Chambers, Temple Avenue, and the London Law Agency is on its incorporation document that appears to be forged. This makes major connections throughout the centralised criminal network, directly to Keir Starmer, directly to Madeleine McCann, leaving no stone unturned, to Elon Musk directly, to Stephen Hawking directly, and CERN, and to my dream, and much more as shown throughout the document. Georgina Edith Mary Brooks connects Island Reach Pool Limited to Carina Court Management Company Limited, that had been incorporated in 1987 and has an address of Hawthorne House, 1 Lowther Gardens, Bournemouth, making important connections to the Association of Residential Management Agents and to the Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom, linking to the Doomsday Cult via Julian Assange and Robert Maxwell. Caroline Kellaway is in the People record, confirming that the previous information that I said and wrote prior to this was correct, and that it's not a coincidence, and that this then links to all three of my families and to the Doomsday Cult and Julian Assange, to the Association of Chief Police Officers of the United Kingdom. William Henry Fulton connects Island Reach Pool Limited to 14 companies, including NewsQuest Community Media Limited, with NewsQuest controlling the local media and having been linked to Reach PLC, which is an organisation connected to Robert Maxwell again and the Doomsday Cult, and the centralised criminal control of information as part of the agenda. Remember, this goes right back and started into at least the Reformation. Fulton also connects to Waterman Limited, which had already linked directly to Maidstone Masonic Company Limited, the town I worked in, Kent Police, and this county I was born, and linking quickly to Quang Li, an inverted name for the Prime Minister of China, and to major areas of the criminal network. Referring back to Nigel Beresford Ears Bill, they also connect to various Oh, I put that wrong. What does that say? Various water companies, including Bournemouth Water Limited, that had been incorporated in 1994 and it dissolved in 2024 as the exposure continued. And Beechcroft Stanley is on its incorporation document, with the Beechcroft Company making immediate connections to Deborah Fleming. Now they control, remember, everything's been controlled by this criminal network. All water companies, all food, even bottled water. No accountability, liability whatsoever. So they've been able to put whatever they want in the water to do whatever they want to people, all right, and blame it on other things. Unfortunately, this is the sort of level we're at now with this. They've centralized everything. Doesn't matter. You know, the only way you're definitely going to be safe is producing your own food, and potentially getting the water from a natural source. But even then, you know, you've got the cloud spraying. But I would say it's much safer to drink, based on the evidence I've got, the water from a natural source than bottled or from the taps. But of course, distilling it is, if you've got no other option, then distilling it is the best way to probably make it safe. Yeah, I've got water. I've mentioned that. Nigel Beresford Ears Beale also connects to Portsmouth Naval Base Trading Company Limited, that had been incorporated as Portsmouth Historic Dockyard in 1992, the same year that the company's house register started to become electronic and the Catholic Church became a legal entity. It has McFarlane's and Octopus Leisure Limited on its incorporation document, linking to the criminal network. The Octopus companies makes relevant connections all the way throughout the document. This is obviously relevant, being the naval base there in Hampshire, to Ian Fleming, and a link to the Navy that he had, as shown throughout the research. Kenneth Howard Coates connects J.E. Beale Public Limited, the one we're looking at right at the beginning, to 11 companies, including BlackRock. Oh, I've got 5 on I've got 5% battery, so I'm just going to finish up now. My torch has gone off, so I'll just carry on for a little bit. Kenneth Howard Coates connects J.E. Beale to 11 companies, including BlackRock Smaller Companies Trust PLC. All right, with BlackRock making critical connections through the centralized criminal network to the Fleming organizations and back to the doomsday end of the world prophecy at Iona. Okay, and the blood of the children, the crimes against humanity, etc. BlackRock. So that's straight from that Beale's company. Kenneth Coates also connects to Kenneth Howard Coates also connects to Dorset Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which features throughout the fraud. He also critically connects to Society of British Aerospace Companies, that makes important connections to Elon Musk, Ghislaine Maxwell, My Families, and criminal international weapons companies, including BAE Systems, featured throughout the fraud. Just very quickly, there's another subject I was going to cover. The deception regarding... Yeah, let's do this quickly. As I escalated the exposure of the fraud, articles emerged in March 2023 regarding a new structure being uncovered at the pyramid sites. The article states Egyptian antiquities officials say they have confirmed the existence of hidden internal corridor above the main entrance of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Videos from an endoscope showed the inside of the corridor, which is 9 meters long and 2.1 meters wide. The officials say it could have been created to redistribute the pyramid's weight around the entrance of another as yet discovered undiscovered chamber. It was first detected in 2016, the year of the Pizzagate scandal being exposed, using an imaging technique and called muography. The reason I'm saying this is the deception around the archaeology and the history, okay? J.P. Morgan has been involved in the archaeology of the Egyptian pyramids and, at the very least, the, what's it called? Stonehenge, okay? Now, this gives them the ability to falsify history to assist in destroying faith. okay, to destroy faith, to destroy moral conscience, and bring in potentially the blood of the tortured children as a normality and the extension of life. And it would end up leading to the end of all of creation. Whereas the key really is to establish moral conscience, to bring back faith, to remove fear of death, to have moral conscience as foundation, and therefore and a system based on that which will prevent this ever happening again. The article says that we're going to, this is someone saying it, we're going to continue our scanning, so we will see what we can do to figure out what we can find out beneath the pyramids, or just by the end of this corridor, said Mostafa Waziri, okay, head of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. Research shows that Mustafa Waziri, occasionally cited as Mustafa Wazari with a Y, is an Egyptian archaeologist, Egyptologist, and the former Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities of Egypt. In July 2023, as was escalating the fraud, he was one of the Egyptian archaeologists featured in a Netflix documentary, Unknown, The Lost Pyramid, alongside the mentor Dr. Zar Hawass. This film documents the 2022 archaeology season in Saqqara. This is the same year, obviously, that the exposure began. A company house search for him, Mustafa Wazari, reveals a Wazari Limited that had been incorporated in December 2022, the month I made my first report of the fraud, and it dissolved in January 2025 as the exposure continued. Mohammed Saud Khan is the only person in the People record. Now, I haven't finished that little bit of the research, so I'm going to come back to that another time. On the 17th of May 2024, articles emerged of new discoveries at the Egyptian pyramids. This was 2 days after I publicised the connection to the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, which was the same day they unveiled the King's apparently satanic portrait. The article states, scientists believe they have solved the mystery of how 31 pyramids, including the world-famous Giza complex, were built in Egypt more than 4,000 years ago. A research team from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, had discovered that the pyramids are likely to have been built along a long-lost ancient branch of the River Nile, which is now hidden under desert and farmland. For many years, archaeologists have thought that ancient Egyptians must have used a nearby waterway to transport materials, such as the stone blocks needed to build the pyramids on the river. But up until now, nobody was certain of the location, the shape, the size, or the proximity of this mega waterway to the actual pyramid site, according to one of the studies. This person who was involved in it is Eman Gonem. Sorry, I'm pronouncing that wrong, I know, but he's an Egyptian-American geomorphologist. In March 2006, he, together with somebody else, discovered this is important, all right? Because the reason I started looking at this is I was talking to somebody about the asteroids and the dinosaurs, and that it was all a lie, and potentially the Earth isn't the age we're being led to believe, and that they're trying to, which is actually alluded to in the scripture. All right, there's a suggestion that the Earth is a lot longer than we believe. Now, I absolutely believe now, based on the evidence, that the dinosaurs are a lie and that the asteroid never happened. That asteroid gave them the ability to create fear through further asteroid deceptions, okay, to make you fear, all right? And by you fearing and them imposing that fear, you then start to fear death, and it removes you from the moral conscience and the creator, along with the system they've created. This moves towards, okay, wanting to do anything to avoid death, even potentially extend people's lives using substances that potentially have came from the poor innocents in all of this. And it enables them to try and shift and falsify timelines to discredit potentially the truth within some of the scripture. And remember, I'll come back to love thy neighbor, all right? That is integrated, as far as I'm aware, into certain elements of the Bible. But it's clear that the Bible has been infiltrated, okay, to implement the fear and implement, it looks like, the blood of the children into the society and into the network. But we know that goes against Christianity because of the love thy neighbor, you see. So we know a lot of that is going to be a deception if you have things, in there that are talking about causing suffering on this earth, because the suffering will come from the judgment on death, I believe, I suspect, based on the evidence. And again, there's no coincidence. My favorite movie is Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and the year that came out in 1991, which is the same year that David Icke said the world would be devastated by earthquakes and tsunamis. And that film links via its director, James Cameron, who directed Avatar, that also came out in 2009, that I became a director for Exbourne Manor. And when you had the Angels and Demons movie and Cloudy the Chance of Meatballs, etc., that links to Ingenious Film Partners. And Ingenious Film Partners is on page 40 of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales. And Ingenious Film Partners connects to my upbringing, okay, my life, directly via people around me. So that means that all connects to me again, for whatever reason. Anyway, the reason I'm showing you this is proving evidence of the deception within the archaeology and the timelines and the fear that they have tried to impose, I believe, through the deception of the dinosaurs and the asteroid. So here, this person, they were involved, okay, in the Egyptology of the pyramids, but look what else they were involved in. In March 2006, now I didn't know this at the time until I found it earlier. In March 2006, Dr. Gonam, the exact same person we've been talking about, together with someone else, discovered the Kibari crater, a possible impact crater in the Sahara. In 2007, while processing microwave space data or radar imagery, she discovered an ancient megalake buried beneath the sand of Great Sahara. Now, this may not even be a real person. They may have just made all of this up, create a fake picture, publicize the fake picture, and it's a very small number of people making this all up. Remember, we've got a small number of people, very, very likely, the very top of this, behind the ultimate agenda and deceiving everybody else through this. In May 2024, they, using radar remote sensing, discovered a long-lost ancient branch of the Nile River, dubbed the Akramat, Arabat, and Pyramids, given the close proximity to the largest concentration of pyramids in Egypt. Their findings suggest that the branch was suitably sized to act as a transportation waterway for workmen. Anyway, you can get the gist. She's involved in a lot of archaeology and exploration, etc., linking in with Egypt, pyramids. Now, she studied at the University of Southampton, okay, in Hampshire, where Deborah Fleming was the head of the NHS. Okay, that was in 2002, the year after the World Trade Center disaster. In 2003, she then held a postdoctorate position center at the remote sensing in Boston University in the United States. Let's do a company's house search. Now, it's a slightly different spelling first name. A search of Professor Eman Gonem, company's house, through Google reveals an Ayman Gomen, exactly the same surname, slightly different, almost identical first name, born in 1976, having been appointed to Riverside Professionals LLP in 2013. The company had been incorporated in February 2012, 5 months before CERN claims to have discovered the God particle, and it dissolved in February 2022, as I made early inquiries at Exbourne Manor. The People record shows over 2,000 entries, which is very unusual unless it's a legal firm. That may be a legal firm, but that's a lot of people. And the filing history shows that pages and pages of appointments and terminations take place in massive blocks. Now, it's very possible that most of those names aren't even real. They're not even real people. Okay, this gives them the ability to centralize everything to a very small number of people. There are immediate duplicate records within the first page of the People record, and a duplicated record for a Mark William Hathaway on the first page connects to 14 companies, including Phoenix Film Partners LLP, that have been incorporated in 2008, and it has Waterloo Film Partners 1 and 2 and Ingenious Media on its incorporation document. This makes immediate connections to Ingenious Film Partners 2 LLP. It is shown on page 40 of the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales, and that company links to me, my upbringing. Okay, now remember, you've got these other Egyptian companies I'm mentioning also tying in around me. Okay, we now have this link via that Egyptian exploration name with a tiny slight variation on the spelling, linking straight to me again. Ingenious Film Partners 2. Oh, was that battery gone? These companies also link immediately. Okay, so these companies that I've mentioned, Waterloo, the Waterloo and the Ingenious Media Company, connects immediately to one of the first journalists on the scene of the Dunblane massacre, which is almost certainly a deception, everybody. Remember, if you've been listening to me, the Dunblane massacre has key evidence in my document. It links to Donald Trump, links to Andy Murray, links to Satanic Temple United Kingdom. It links to Candace Owens. Major areas of the criminal network, back into Jimmy Savile, back into the research of Madeleine McCann and this evidence of the skin being worn by Prince Harry. Okay, so this is immediately to one of the first of 2 journalists that I've researched on the scene of the Dunblane massacre. It also, where are we? Which makes major. Yeah, I mentioned that. I showed elsewhere. They also link. Oh, it also linked these movies. These companies also link directly to the Skinner's Academy Trust. Skinner's skinning, supporting the evidence of the murder and skinning of children, for which the Pizzagate scandal is so relevant. As the exposure of the criminal network continued, social media articles emerged of a new discovery under the Khafre pyramids, suggesting there were deep pillar structures encircled by possible spiral staircases under the pyramids. Interestingly, I found no BBC article regarding this. Now, I only had a quick look, but I literally typed in several different variations of a search. No BBC article of